Now imagine being 15 years old and hearing that song live. It changed my goddamn life. It made me want to be, I guess, Guns N' Roses or shit. I don't even know. And the only kid that I knew at the time that had music like this was one of my parents' friends who was like 18 or like 17 years old. He was 3 years older than me, and he would listen to great bands like Jawbreaker and Jawbox and Fugazi, and he kind of like opened the door for a sorry sap like me who couldn't just appreciate anything, because the scene in which I grew up had such great bands and they were influenced, but I didn't understand their influences. I didn't understand where that aggression and anger actually came from. And there was actually a pretty big local band who I'll play in just a few minutes for us called God's Reflex. Oh my god, I still have a t-shirt. It's been like 20 years and I've still had the same fucking t-shirt. And they were so high quality when I purchased the t-shirt and the vinyls and everything. I still have them. Everything's still mint. I'm not saying like, oh, I didn't wear it or abuse it or anything like that. No, I did. I wore it to every goddamn show I went to. I had a Carly's Day Out t-shirt, but those things were really poor quality and didn't have, the great thread count. I don't know shit about t-shirts. But I heard those bands from my local scene. The band that I wish I could play for you is a band called Aletheia. And our scene also had bands like Charles Bronson and Uniform Pants. And, we had DeKalb Hardcore. We had Chicago punk rock like Alkaline Trio and Lawrence Arms, all within an arm's distance. Broadway's, Magnum Opus, Less Than Jake used to come by every once in a while. There used to be a band that came through called The Sandwich Is, which had members of At the Drive-In, because our scene was so intense that we were really pushing the envelope on punk rock in our community. I got really into screamo, which I still am today, but not what you hear on the main. I guess now you could call it Scrams, Skramz. It's cheesy as fuck, but the few bands that I'm friends with, Jillian Carter, another band, Loma Prieta. So these bands inspired me to wanting to do punk rock myself. So me and three friends, Brett, Nick, and I can never remember the drummer's name. I want to say his name is Caleb. Started a band called OTO, which was basically a butt cheeks with the T being the thong. And we sang songs about me being adopted and Brett's real Great Depression about having divorced parents and, a lot of sexual innuendos. And Nick, the bass player, would just be like the goofiest bitch that I've ever met in my life. I'm assuming he's still the same way. Kelly, if you're listening to this, let me know what Nick's up to these days. So we had all these bands that, definitely inspired me to want to be a musician, just like I want to be a radio host, wanting to be a podcaster to today. Punk rock is still important to me, but it doesn't have the great feat. But as the story continues, through my teenage years going to high school, it definitely changed the way that I viewed the world. And, punk rock is primarily a fight the system, fight the man, fight the American dream, which even in today's sense is just, it's all bullshit. But I'm going to digress, but the politics of it came with the music, and the music came with the politics. We found that things were wrong, and anything that we were against we stood strong and we screamed them into microphones, whether it was screaming or singing or growling or just instrumental. Hell, I even remember a band that was called Emmanuel the Florist, and all they were was a instrumental punk band, and all they did was basically fill the room with as much anger through their instruments. Man, I bet Emmanuel the Florist, if anyone can tell them to come back, that would be a band. They sounded like the early versions of Russian Circles. Those guys just managed to fill the room with so much anger. And another band that I want to give tribute to, because I know the dude has pursued drumming as a lifestyle, is Aaron Brace out in Chicago. He makes custom drums and just anything that is drumming, jam band. He was in a couple of bands. I can't remember the names of them. I mean, I remember seeing the lead singer just be like a John Morrison, Jimi Hendrix style, and that music didn't really just hit, but I was friends with everybody, so I had to follow them. They were meant to be rock stars. They wanted to be like the next fucking Zeppelin or Aerosmith or whatever, and, you know, the lead singer would dress a certain way, but I digress. But a band that, you know, really touched in the beginning of punk rock was a band called God's Reflex, who I'm actually going to play now. I don't know if I can play the full song, if, you know, they make me turn it off. You know, iHeartMedia and or Spreaker, I will definitely cut down the audio. There's digital copyright out of Chicago, but I thought, fuck it. No one gives a shit about these bands anymore. There's another band called the Felix Coppola that I'll play in a little bit. I guess this is going to be a little longer than a half an hour since we're already at 22 minutes, but all of these have, you know, something to do with my life, and definitely it's going to tell you how it saved and destroyed my life here shortly. So give me a second while I prompt up the next song. Now, before I play this song, I want to give the credentials. This is Careering from God's Reflex from the album Scenes from a Motel Seduction. The artwork is actually from a hotel in, I believe, Beloit, Wisconsin / Roscoe. I'm not 100% sure, but here is the song Careering by God's Reflex.
Precious dreaming, 'cause I know it's not real. Stay at home and wish for better. You're better. It's foolish now to hope for some time more. You to weigh me in. Another bad trip's on our hands. This is surely not the
Wow, even listening to that now, it feels like the first time I heard it. It feels like an atomic amount of cheese that, you know, because the lyrics are cheesy. I mean, they're written by someone who's not much older than I am, but he just had a way. I don't know. That was Zach Newman, who was the lead singer of that band. He actually went on to a bigger band. He ended up going to a bigger band. I don't know if he's still doing music or if he's still teaching, but he was an amazing bass player. His sister was cool as hell, too, as far as I remember. It's all so long ago. It's like almost 20, 25 years ago at this point. So, man, that just takes me back. I want to light up a cigarette and go, yeah, I remember when I didn't smoke and hung out in mosh pits. And I wish I could play some of the other bands from back in the day, but there's only a few that have recordings and whatnot. I don't know if I can find Aletheia online. You can definitely tell that that's where my music kind of took me, was to the louder, more darker side. And the name of the episode is How Punk Rock Saved and Destroyed My Life. Now, punk rock creates an ideology that everyone encompasses, or they just appreciate the music, but it changed my ideology. I grew up as someone who wanted to do good in life and always wanted to, provide for anyone who was suffering. And there's a lot of suffering in this world. So I would choose causes at any given time, no matter what the outcome, or if I could change it, or if I could affect it, or just defy rationality of this American dream. As I grow older, the DIY process hasn't changed. Thus, podcasting has given me a great option to expand that ideology and DIY ethics that I have. I really don't want to use other people's music in my podcasts, but I think it's also building upon what is already created to advance what I am already thinking without, creating that own music to put on a podcast. It's weird, but who has the time to write jingles and songs and such at this point? It's 2 o'clock in the morning for me, pushing 3 now. I had a long day, so